रिफ्रेश
एक मिनट नहीं ये तो
वीडियोस पर करो।
सब्सक्राइब तो नहीं हुआ बता दो। सॉरी
एक मिनट चालू ओके છે ને ઓકે છે ને ચાલો ઓકે
वो थोड़ी चेयर्स ऐड करावी थी चेयर्स थोड़ी ऐड करावी थी
ના 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 ના
तो नहीं આવી था બધો સ્થાન
બધાને કેમ 4 જણા
ઉપરની વાત નથી કરતો
નીચે તો બધા તો બેસી જશે બેન્ચ પર
Very good morning, everyone. Nasti vidya samo bandhu, nasti vidya samam bhutam, nasti vidya samam sukham, nasti vidya samam chakshu. So the vision that we carry is through knowledge and belief. I warmly welcome you all to this GUETA lecture series jointly organized by Gujarat University English Teachers Association and hosted at Shri Arts College. For us to expand our visions and to know what is beyond the horizons. Today we have with us Dr. Starfire Iyer sir, Dr. Swati ma'am, our principal Dr. Kapadia sir, and Rashmi ma'am, Department of English, head of the department. Anything that starts with a good woman, and what better than a prayer to start. I would like to invite Dr. Unnati Pausa to say a prayer. Unnati. of GUETA institution. Both of his parents have been professors of English, and what do we say more than it has been given to him in his genes. He has worked as a lecturer in English Arts College, Prin from 1991 to 2006, and then onward as principal of R.H. Patel College, Arts and Commerce College, Nawabad. He is the General Secretary of the Gujarat State College Principals Association from 2013 to 2023, and now serves as the Vice President. His area of interest as a teacher, which sticks to what we call as a true teacher, is teaching life through literature. He focuses on the overall development of the student's personality, making a huge change in the higher education system, trying to orient it with life. His punchline is rather be upyogi rather being a newbie. I would invite Dr. Nitesh Solanki sir to give a floral welcome.
फोटो पढ़
Yes, sir.
हो गया
Thank you, Nitesh sir.
5 6
As speaker for today, Dr. Swati S. Kapadia ma'am holds an MA, MPhil and PhD in English, and she is shouldering the charge of principal at Women's College. She is a research guide in English, specializing in diaspora and migration studies, as well as Indian knowledge systems at Gujarat University. She has published papers in national and international journals of poetry, drama, assessment of history, and Indian knowledge system are many of her areas of interest. Teaching is her passion, and imparting the same to students is what she has come to do here with us. She has served as a textbook writer, a reviewer, as well as a language expert with the Gujarat State Higher Education Board and the textbooks that are published here. I would request Professor Rashmi Verma ma'am to give a floral welcome to Swati. How can we forget our spinal cord, Dr. Karsan B. Chokhani, Principal, Yusha Arts College, under whose light and vision that we are able to arrange this lecture series years after years. His complete cooperation and his dedication for student advancement is something which motivates us and fuels us all the time. Chokhani sir has written and authored more than 33 books, and he guides students in PhD. He has worked as the PhD referee for students of Gujarat University. He is in the board of studies for psychology, that's his area of expertise, and he is also a Congress Association member, Indian Science Congress Association member, life member. He works with different universities like Saurashtra University, Kashi University, Children's University, and whenever you ask him for something like this, which advances for students, he never says no. That's his personality. When it comes to students, it's always a big yes. I would request Dr. Anurag Singh Kumar to give a floral welcome to Chokhani sir. Thank you, Anurag sir. I will now request Chokhani sir to give a welcome speech and motivate the students to be actively participating in this lecture series.
नमस्कार, गुड मॉर्निंग. ગુએટાની લેક્ચર સિરીઝમાં ઉપસ્થિત ગુએટાના પ્રેસિડેન્ટ અને વાડજ કોલેજના પ્રિન્સિપાલ અને મારા માર્ગદર્શક અને મિત્ર ડૉક્ટર અય્યર સાહેબ, ભવન્સ કોલેજના આચાર્ય ડૉક્ટર સ્વાતિબેન, ઇંગ્લિશ વિભાગના અધ્યક્ષ ડૉક્ટર રશ્મિબેન, इंग्लिश विभागना डॉक्टर नितेश भाई, डॉक्टर अनुराग सिंह, डॉक्टर पूजाबेन, प्रथम हरोळમાં મારા સહકર્મચારીઓ, મારા સહ મિત્રો એવા સૌ અધ્યાપક મિત્રો અને આપ સૌ વિદ્યાર્થી ભાઈઓ, ઇંગ્લિશ બોલવાની મારી મર્યાદા છે, પણ મને ગૌરવ છે કે મારી માતૃભાષા ગુજરાતી છે અને ગુજરાતી આવડે, કારણ કે આ સપ્તાહ આપણે માતૃભાષા સપ્તાહ તરીકે ગુજરાત સરકાર તેની ઉજવણી કરી રહ્યું છે. અને એ વાત પણ એટલી સત્ય છે કે જ્યારે અમે ભણતા ત્યારે અમારા વિષયની અંદર ગુજરાતી ભાષાની અંદર મટીરિયલ્સ ઉપલબ્ધ હતું, ઇંગ્લિશની અંદર ઉપલબ્ધ હતું, કારણ કે મનોવિજ્ઞાન વિષય એ મોટા ભાગે ફોરેન કન્ટ્રીના કન્ટેન્ટના આધારે અહીંયા શરૂ થયેલું હતું. એટલે મોટા ભાગનું ઇંગ્લિશ હતું, ગુજરાતી 5% પણ એ વખતે અમારે ઉપલબ્ધ નહોતું. અને ત્યારે નક્કી કરેલું કે ગુજરાતી ભાષાની અંદર વિષયનું મટીરિયલ ઉપલબ્ધ કરાવવું. અને આજે પરિસ્થિતિ એવી છે કે ઇંગ્લિશ મીડિયમમાં ગુજરાતી મીડિયમનું ટ્રાન્સલેટ કરવું પડે છે. મિત્ર ડોક્ટર અય્યર સાહેબ જે GUETA પ્રમુખ છે અને GUETAની એક્ટિવિટી વર્ષોથી અવિરતપણે ચાલે છે. કદાચ ગુજરાત યુનિવર્સિટીની અંદર આ એક જ વિષય એવો હશે, આર્ટ્સ, કોમર્સ, સાયન્સ, કોઈ પણ ગણી લો તમે ગુજરાત યુનિવર્સિટીની અંદર, કે જેમાં વિદ્યાર્થીઓ અને અધ્યાપકો માટે એક એપ ચાલતી હોય, જેમાં વિદ્યાર્થીઓ જ્યારે કોલેજની અંદર દાખલ થાય છે ત્યારથી જ્યાં સુધી ઇંગ્લિશ સાથે, ઇંગ્લિશ વિષય સાથે જોડાયેલા છે અને સ્ટડી કરે છે, સ્ટડી નથી કરતા પણ ક્યાંક ને ક્યાંક જોડાયેલા છે, તો ઇંગ્લિશ વિષય અને ઇંગ્લિશ લિટરેચરનું એમને કંઈ પણ જોઈતું હોય મટીરિયલ્સ અથવા માર્ગદર્શન, તો આ એપના માધ્યમથી મેળવી શકે છે. અને આ એપમાં સૌથી વધારે જેમણે મહેનત કરી છે ડોક્ટર નિકેશભાઈ, કારણ કે અને એમને ઘણા બધા એક્સપર્ટ, કોમ્પ્યુટર એક્સપર્ટની મદદ પણ લીધી છે. અય્યર સાહેબ સતત એમની સાથે રહ્યા છે અને એમને પણ એટલું જ કોમ્પ્યુટર અને વિષયનું નોલેજ છે ડેપ. અને અય્યર સાહેબ માટે તમે એવું કહીએ છીએ, કદાચ અય્યર સાહેબ જો નિષ્ક્રિય થઈ જાય તો અમારા પગાર પણ ના કારણ કે માત્ર કર્મચારી, માત્ર અધ્યાપકો માટે નહીં પણ વિદ્યાર્થીઓ માટે પણ એટલા ચિંતિત છે. અને એનઈપી હોય, વિદ્યાર્થીના એડમિશન હોય, વિદ્યાર્થીની પરીક્ષાઓ હોય, વિદ્યાર્થીના રિઝલ્ટ હોય, એનું સમયસર એનું નિરાકરણ થાય અને સમયસર વિદ્યાર્થીઓને લાભ મળી શકે અને સમયસર વિદ્યાર્થીઓના રિઝલ્ટ આવી શકે, એના માટે સતત પ્રયત્નશીલ હોય છે. અને માત્ર એવું નહીં કે કોલેજ વર્ષ દરમિયાન એ 24 કલાક, રાતે 2 વાગે પણ એમનો મેસેજ હોય, સવારે 4 વાગે પણ એમનો મેસેજ હોય. અને યુનિવર્સિટી, સરકાર અને અન્ય દરેક જગ્યામાં એ મીડિયેટર તરીકે એમની ભૂમિકા રહી છે. કે કારણ કે જો આવા વ્યક્તિઓ ના હોય તો ઘણા બધા પ્રશ્નોનું સોલ્યુશન આવી શકે નહીં. અને ઇંગ્લિશ વિષય માટે તો એટલા બધા એક્ટિવ છે અને કદાચ ભાગ્ય જેવું બની શકે કે આચાર્ય બન્યા પછી વિષયમાં એક્ટિવ રહી અને વિષય વિદ્યાર્થી સુધી પહોંચાડવો, વિદ્યાર્થીઓમાં લોકપ્રિય બનાવવો એવું ભાગ્ય જ બની શકે છે. એમાંના એક આચાર્ય આ બાજુ બેઠા છે, એક આચાર્ય આ બાજુ. ડોક્ટર સ્વાતિબેન પણ ઇંગ્લિશ વિષયના બહુ જ નિષ્ણાત છે અને આજની તારીખ સુધી વિષય સાથે જોડાયેલા છે. અને અમે ત્રણેય મિત્રો છે યુનિવર્સિટી પરીક્ષા સાથે પણ જોડાયેલા છીએ, એટલે પરીક્ષા આ લેવાય છે ત્યાંથી રિઝલ્ટ આપવા સુધીની પ્રક્રિયા સાથે પણ જોડાયેલા છે. એટલે વિદ્યાર્થીઓની એક એક બાબતથી વાકેફ હોય એવા આચાર્ય હોય તો વિદ્યાર્થીને ઘણો બધો ફાયદો મળી શકે છે. કારણ કે વિદ્યાર્થી એમના હૃદય અને એમના વિચારમાં હોય છે. જ્યારે હૃદય અને વિચાર બંનેમાં હોય છે ત્યારે આઉટપુટ આવે છે. અને એનું એક આઉટપુટ આપણે જોઈ રહ્યા છો કે તમને ક્યાંય પણ કદાચ કોલેજ નથી આવી શકતા, નોકરી કરીએ છીએ તો પણ વિષયનું કંઈ પણ જરૂરિયાત હોય તો તમે એક ખોલો એટલે તમને એની અંદરથી માર્ગદર્શન મળી રહે છે. અને અધ્યાપકો પણ એની અંદર જોડાયેલા છે એટલે તમે કોઈ પણ અધ્યાપકોના નંબરથી મેળવીને એમનું પણ પર્સનલ માર્ગદર્શન મેળવી શકો છો. સામાન્ય આપણે નંબર મળવો મુશ્કેલ હોય પણ આપણે આ એકના માધ્યમથી ઘણા બધા મિત્રોનો સંપર્ક થાય છે અને સંપર્કના કારણે આપણી જે મૂંઝવણો છે આપણે દૂર કરી શકીએ છીએ. અને આ કોલેજ એ એમનો જે ઇંગ્લિશ વિષય છે કોલેજનો એટલો બધો સમૃદ્ધ છે કે લગભગ હાઈએસ્ટ ફર્સ્ટ ક્લાસ અને ડિસ્ટિંક્શન એ પણ ઇંગ્લિશ વિષયમાં આવે છે. અને બહુ જ કોલેજની ગૌરવની વાત છે કારણ કે બધી રીતે સમૃદ્ધ છે. સ્ટાફની દ્રષ્ટિએ, સ્ટાફના જે અધ્યાપકો છે એમની એક્સપર્ટાઇઝની દ્રષ્ટિએ, વિદ્યાર્થીઓની દ્રષ્ટિએ, વિદ્યાર્થીઓના રિઝલ્ટની દ્રષ્ટિએ અને ઇંગ્લિશની જે એક્ટિવિટી જુદી જુદી ચાલે એની દ્રષ્ટિએ કોલેજની અંદર અત્યારે એક સમય મનોવિજ્ઞાન કોર્સ ટોચ સ્થાને હતું, પણ અત્યારે ઇંગ્લિશ ટોચ સ્થાને. આ બધી જ દ્રષ્ટિએ અને વારંવાર કહેતો હોઉં છું કે સરસ તમારા વિદ્યાર્થીઓ હતા ફસલાનું લખીને મોકલું, ત્યારે રિઝલ્ટ આવ્યું ત્યારે વિષયવાર રિઝલ્ટ હું દરેક ડિપાર્ટમેન્ટનું રિઝલ્ટ કાઢીને મોકલું છું કે ડિપાર્ટમેન્ટનું રિઝલ્ટ છે, જેથી કરી નેક્સ્ટ વિદ્યાર્થીઓને શું માર્ગદર્શન આપો એનો ખ્યાલ આવી શકે. એટલે ઇંગ્લિશ વિષય છે બહુ જ ઉપયોગી વિષય તો છે, પણ સાથે સાથે લિટરેચરનું નોલેજ તમે મેળવો છો એટલે જીવન જીવવાની કળા પણ તમને આની અંદરથી પ્રાપ્ત થાય છે. અને ઇંગ્લિશ આવડવું જોઈએ અત્યારના સમયની અંદર ખૂબ આવશ્યક છે, પણ માત્ર ઇંગ્લિશ બોલતા આવડવું એટલું નહીં, પણ વિષયનું પણ એટલું જ નોલેજ ધરાવવું એ પણ એટલું જ જરૂરી છે. કારણ કે ઘણી વખત અત્યારે જોઉં છું ઇંગ્લિશ મીડિયમમાં ભણીએ છીએ, ઇંગ્લિશ બોલતા આપણું ઇંગ્લિશ બોલી શકીએ છીએ, પણ વિષયની જે નોલેજ છે ડેપ્થ નોલેજ એ આવી શકતી નથી. અને જે વિષયમાં આપણે ભણીએ છીએ એ વિષયની અંદર એક તો આપણને જ્યાં રહીએ છીએ ત્યાંની લોકલ લેંગ્વેજ અને બીજું જે માધ્યમમાં આપણે ભણીએ છીએ તે માધ્યમની લેંગ્વેજ, આ બંને આપણને પરફેક્ટ આવડતી હોય તો જ આપણે આપણા વિચારો એ સામે વ્યક્તિ સુધી કે જ્યાં આપણે છીએ ત્યાં મૂકી શકીએ છીએ. અને જો એ ન હોય તો આવું બની શકતું નથી. અને તો પીએચડી આના ઉપર કરેલું કે જે મીડિયમ ઓફ ઇન્સ્ટ્રક્શન છે એટલે કે ગુજરાતી માધ્યમ, ઇંગ્લિશ માધ્યમ કે હિન્દી માધ્યમમાં ભણેલા વિદ્યાર્થીઓ જે છે એની એકેડેમિક એન્ઝાઇટી કેવું છે, એની એડજસ્ટમેન્ટ કેવી છે, એની ક્રિએટિવિટી કેવી છે. પણ મારા અભ્યાસનું પરિણામ એવું કહે છે કે જે માતૃભાષા હોય એમાં અભ્યાસ કરેલ હોય તો એમનો એકેડેમિક એન્ઝાઇટી લેવલ ઓછું હોય છે, એની ક્રિએટિવિટી વધારે હોય છે, એનું એડજસ્ટમેન્ટ વધારે સારું હોય. કારણ કે આપણને સૌથી પહેલો વિચાર ગમે તે માધ્યમ આપણું હોય તો સૌથી પહેલો વિચાર આપણને શેમાં આવે છે? આપણી માતૃભાષા. અને જ્યારે એને કન્વર્ટ કરીએ છીએ બીજી લેંગ્વેજમાં ત્યારે ઘણી બધી તકલીફ થાય. જો આપણી પાસે વોકેબ્યુલરી ન હોય તો એટલે તમને એક ખાસ, જો કે તમે બધા જ અત્યારે સક્ષમ છો અને તમે દરેક ટેકનોલોજીથી પરિચિત છો, વોકેબ્યુલરી તમારી સ્ટ્રોંગ હોવી જોઈએ. અને એના માટે જરૂરી છે વાંચન. જો વાંચન ના હોય તો વોકેબ્યુલરી વધતી નથી. અને માત્ર હવે એવું નથી કે આપણા વિષયની વોકેબ્યુલરી, તમામ ક્ષેત્રોની તમામ વિષયોની વોકેબ્યુલરી આપણી પાસે હોય તો આપણે કોઈ પણ બાબતની અંદર કોઈ પણ વ્યક્તિ સાથે ચર્ચા કરી શકીએ, એમાં ભાગ લઈ શકીએ અને આપણા વિચારોને અભિવ્યક્ત કરી શકીએ. ફરી ઇંગ્લિશ ડિપાર્ટમેન્ટને ખૂબ અભિનંદન અને આપ સૌને પણ અભિનંદનની સાથે ખૂબ ખૂબ શુભેચ્છાઓ. જય હિન્દ.
Unlock our, urge and efforts for this year. I would now request Dr. Swati sir, the presidential speech.
हाँ सर, अब अनुराग सर.
થઈ ગયું, એ બી થઈ ગયું, એમણે ફોરવર્ડ બી કર્યું.
Respected Post Principal Swati sir, my colleague and my close friend Sultan, all colleagues and very dear students. First of all, as you all know, March is approaching and income tax season is going on. So whatever Swati sir told about me, kindly do TDS of 60% or 70% because it's now that he exaggerated things so much. I am just doing my duty which I should do. This college, I am never a guest here because I feel at home in this college. So I am just even happier here that I am in my college because there will be many issues in my college. Here I have got this college issues. So it's a homely atmosphere for me. I would also like to congratulate all of you on this Matrubhasha Day, 21st February is celebrated as Matrubhasha Day. all over the world also. એટલે ગુજરાતી પ્રત્યે મને હું ગુજરાતીને બહુ જ ચાહું છું. એ મારી શીખેલી પાંચમી ભાષા છે, તો હું ખૂબ ચાહું છું. ખૂબ સન્માન સાથે હું આ અંગ્રેજીના પ્રોગ્રામમાં થોડુંક deviation આપણે કરીશું. That though we are all in Gujarat, is really Gujarati our matrbhasha. Nowadays, I think that English has overpowered Gujarati, because I think English has become our language. Even your mother, who is not highly educated, uses English script in WhatsApp. Because now what is your language? Whatever language you are using in WhatsApp is your language. So we write, it's a wonderful thing that we write Gujarati in English. તમે ક્યારે જવાના છો? ALTKYART ક્યારે જવાના છો? And the same way we also use English words, that is English script for Gujarati. And this is જે લોકો ગુજરાતીમાં ટાઈપ કરે છે ને એ લોકો પણ લખે છે યસ I am coming. So this love for English is true. English is so much loved in Gujarat. I personally believe that English is so much loved in Gujarat, because if you go to Rajasthan, Goa or Maharashtra, most of the vehicles are from Gujarat. The moment you cross the border, you will find on every hotel the vehicles of, because people love English. English is loved. English is loved. So, joke apart, but let me tell you, I am extremely happy to see that this class is full. Students are here, because there are so many obstacles outside. Clearing all those obstacles and coming here to the classroom is actually a wonderful act. Once upon a time when we were seeing empty classes, we were shocked. Now when we see full class, we are shocked. That situation has transformed. But let me tell you, this is a program where you are going to learn about it. English. English is just a name. But what literature is, and why we have to go to it. Let me tell you that we all are a part of a generation which is breaking down totally in communication. What is breaking down is communication. If you go to a family, dad has got a mobile, mom is working on mobile, brother is working on mobile, sister is working on mobile, and everybody is working on mobile. So we are trying to connect ourselves with those people who are physically not here, and we are trying to disconnect with those people who are physically near us. So this is a breaking era of communication. And this Bluetooth technology has even worsened the situation. In our old times, when somebody was speaking to himself or herself, we were considering that person to be mad. ગાડાની વ્યાખ્યા શું? તો જે માણસ એકલો એકલો બોલતો હોય એ ગાડો. Now everybody is like that. And you see, the Bluetooth devices are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. I saw one latest Bluetooth earring. So now that earring is also a Bluetooth earring. So the person has got no Bluetooth apparent device and still he is talking. So who is talking with him, we never know. The girlfriend who is going on the bike with her boyfriend is texting message on mobile to another boyfriend. The boyfriend believes, yes, this is the situation. And who knows that while driving the boy is talking to somebody, that may be another bigger point. So communication channel has totally broken. So this is a world, and this is a very shocking thing to think. Communication has to be done. And communication is a tough job that literature does. जिस्म की बात नहीं है, उनके दिल तक जाना. जिस्म की बात नहीं है, उनके दिल तक जाना था. लंबी दूरी तय करने में वक्त तो लगता है. वक्त तो लगता है. Now we नए परिंदों को उड़ने में वक्त लगता है. This time factor. Now the question is, वक्त ही तो नहीं है. Everybody is running. Everybody is running. As if everybody wants to solve the Ukraine issue and wants to fix up the OPEC country price. So this is. So in such a world, only one thing will build. One thing will. My last hope is literature only. That if you are reading a book, rest assured that you are talking to the book and the book is talking to you only. This is very important. This is extremely important. That who is communicating with who. When talking in the send-off program of third year, sometimes students ask, "Sir, लगन करवा के नहीं?" अरे करवा तो कौन ही सकते? Whom? So, because you see nowadays what happens is that telephone has become the entire symbolism of our human life. So my one line advice is that marry that person who approaches you rather than marry whom you approach. Because whom you approach, whom you are calling might be a phone which is engaged already. But the person who is calling you is directly dialing to your phone only. So you are at the center. Who is at the center in communication is extremely important. And if you go to literature, the thing is that literature not only teaches you what is, but what can be. It explores the possibilities of life, not only reality. So to explore the possibilities of life, to look at life from various dimensions, you require the deeper study of. So friends, your coming to classroom gives you an opportunity to interact with the teacher. Sometimes, you see, everything is there on Google. But when you have got everything is on Google, then there is nothing on Google. Because you don't search them. And there is no authenticity there. So you require a teacher. All of you have taken up English literature as a matter of your study. I am sure that if you read at least 5 or 7 texts well, that love for literature will develop. And that love for literature is very wonderful. It requires only requires that you should have a live heart. Live heart. બધા હૃદયો ધબકતા હોય છે એવું માનવાના કારણ નથી. You should have a live heart. तो सीने में जलन, आंखों में तूफान साथी है. हर इस शहर में हर शख्स परेशान. दिल है तो धड़कने का बहाना कोई ढूंढे. पत्थर की तरह ये बेजान साथी है. There are so many people who are having very rough heart. Today accident time, somebody falls down. They never feel at all. So 2 things are required. One, live heart. And other thing is more important, wetness in eyes. તમારી આંખોમાં વિનાશ. If your eyes go dry, then everything is. Some people say that males should not cry. Who says? If you are really an emotional person, tears should be at the brink of your eyes. मैंने आंसू पड़ी છે. એ क्या पूछवा रहे છે? પણ એ connection થાય કોણ? You require that connection of heart. So dear friends, this is a world of digital madness. Now people, there are so many, especially the man of psychology, there are so many types of madness. But this is the world of digital. And in this digital world of madness, if you want to keep yourself intact, then be emotional, keep in touch with literature, read short stories, explore the possibilities of life, and one more thing, keep observing life. All around you, so many things are happening. So many things are happening. Life is a wonderful thing. nature is wonderful. But then all these things we have to look with your own eyes. Some father advised the son that, my dear son, you are always in your deeply engrossed in your mobile. There is outer world also, outer world and outer nature also. Why don't you go there? Son says, Dad, I don't have time, kindly send me the link of the outer world. This is the situation that we have to explore life, look around you. God has made wonderful creations, trees, nature, birds. You see, when the Shantiniketan was founded on this principle only, that learn from nature. Nature teaches you a lot. So with this note, I think that that generation of love for literature will lead you to a happy life, peaceful life, where you will understand that you yourself are a wonderful person with whom you should communicate rather than go to the outer world. Thank you very much for
लिटरेचर एक पर्सनालिटीના કેટલા કેરેક્ટરિસ્ટિક આપણે વાત કરીએ ના એ રસ્તે જતા હોય અને ટ્રાફિક જામ થઈ ગયો હોય એ ટ્રાફિક ક્લિયર કરાવવા માટે ચાર રસ્તા ઉપર મેં એમને વારંવાર જોયા છે કે ટ્રાફિક ક્લિયર ટ્રાફિક પોલીસ પણ ના હોય એવા સમયે ટ્રાફિક જામમાં એમને ટ્રાફિક ક્લિયર કરાવ્યો એટલું જ નહીં એ રસ્તે જતા હોય અને જોયું કે આ સ્ટેચ્યુ કેટલા સમયથી સાફ થયેલું નથી ધૂળ માટી ધૂળ કચરો બધું પડેલું છે વહેલી સવારે ઘરે સાયકલ ઉપર ઢોલ પાણીની ઢોલ લઈ અને એ સ્ટેચ્યુ વહેલી સવારે સાફ કરેલું છે
Though earlier sir said that it would become the TDS, but with this presidential speech, we come to know that there is a text book. So with this note, not taking further time, I request Rashmi ma'am for the vote of thanks for the democracy.
Yes, I was deep into your words. Your words are lessons in life skills. Your concern for the entrapment that students have fallen in because of the digital world has touched a point with all of us. Not only we elders, but even the students, I'm sure, are worried somewhere. These are them 6 students. They have gone through certain stages of experiences now, and I'm sure they've taken your words so very seriously because I think deep in their heart they too feel this. And you've given words to what they are feeling. Maybe they are not so good in expressing what they feel, but and we wanted to share this with each other. Sir, your concern, we all appreciate. Of course, your dedication as a teacher, not only of English, but a teacher in the real sense of the word, who knows the attitude and approach of all the agencies which are involved in running an educational institute, beginning from the government agency, the management, the principal, the teaching, the non-teaching staff, and the students. We have already seen how he is very much embedded with the concerns for students. So sir, when Ayar sir makes a comment, it carries weight. It carries weight for all of us. Sir, our effort is just to give a small contribution to this lecture series, and thank you so much for taking this time and sharing your concern and giving expression to what we were at home. Thank you. Swati is with us, so she'll be talking to us. Our principal, as you heard just now, topic later in the class.
So without further ado, we have reached the part that we have been waiting for, the start of the lecture series, officially by Swati.
Friends, Swati अपना college માંથી આવ્યા છે. You know teacher very well, of course. I don't have to say anything else. But the students from other colleges, Dr. Swati will Kapadia, as you know, Madam just introduced, the principal of Commerce College. But for our subject, English, you know, she has the advantage of being a principal also. So she is in a position where she can do a little extra, which we faculties, we professors have certain limitations. And she has used her authority for the benefit of students and teachers, isn't it? To boost the facilities which would help both the teachers and students in studying what we have offered as our main subject, isn't it? And that's why when we approach her, she readily accepts the invitation and obliges us by coming here. So we just suggest a topic, ma'am, this topic where आप share करेंगे अपने ideas, and she is so eager to come and share ideas with us, right? So I'm sure we'll be learning a lot when she starts her discussion. Just give us time. I'm sure you all are planning to be with us throughout the lecture. Note down your points, even though you are from our college. But I didn't give you any. So just jot down points when she is going through the lecture. And margin में queries or questions note करते जाएंगे. Session के बाद we'll have a question answer session and note that you ask.
let us discuss Indian poetry in English. We try to set the form in the Indian setup discuss the struggle of our writers to have their own identity, discuss who are the writers who dared to swim against the existing trends, and that is how Indian poetry in English originated and journeyed through all these years. As Rashmi ma'am has rightly said, please keep your notes open and go on taking down because I will yes, if you really love literature, you really loving literature is one thing. What do you love? Chetan Bhagat? જેને માટે ક્લાસમાં પૂછો તો we would say કે whether should we consider him as a literary writer. So the demarcating line between literature and non-literature text is very thin. इस समय में कविता बनवू, how many of you sincerely, honestly, how many of you like poetry? Is there anyone? In any language. Any language, જરૂરી નથી. કવિતા એક ફોર્મ છે, પછી સાહિત્ય છે. What Iyer said कि live heart, let me put it technically, what you need is sensitivity, and that sensitivity is given only by literature. પછી સાહિત્ય એ ગમે તે ભાષાનું હોય, તમારી માતૃભાષાનું પણ હોય, but if you have that innate sensitivity, you will enjoy literature. Apart from passing examination, which is our major goal, our Indian setup is that CGPA still till date matters. એવું તો નહીં કહી શકું તમને કે 55% પર અટકી જશો તો ચાલશે, પણ સાહિત્ય પણ વાંચો. Marks are also important at the same time. જે કઈ સિસ્ટમ છે એ સિસ્ટમમાંથી સારામાં સારું whatever best we can avail, we should try to do that. Now without going further, I'll straight away start with Indian poetry in English. With a lot of argument with Nitesh Bhai and the syllabus committee, we have been successful enough to introduce papers in Indian writing in English. So tentatively, as Science 6 students, you have studied 3 papers in Indian writing in English, and you have an idea of, can I presuppose that? You have an idea of the ages, whatever periodization we have to do. We have followed periodization by a historian, a scholar called M.K. Naidu. His पुस्तक Indian writing, Indian literature in English is the prescribed text. With that little background, now let us focus on the origin, development, periodization, identity crisis of Indian poetry in English. Now my focus will be on poetry in English, the ages, what are the struggles, what are the issues, what is the contribution of the poets, and so on. To begin with, we all know that Indian literature in English has a history of periodization pramani, which is the first period, 1825 up to 1857. What we have studied, I am going to introduce another periodization today for Indian poetry in English. But so આજે હું એવું કહી શકું કે Indian literature in English has a history of say 200 years. How it originated, Koveli Venkat, he translated a Sanskrit text, and that turned out to be the first book in English. But practically, if we know, before Indians could write poetry in English, what is necessary? There are 2 preconditions to be met. his English education, introduction of English education will become a part of. Which were the two basic conditions. Think of East India Company, which arrived as traders. So one, Indianization of English language. If the Indians feel at home with English, they would venture to study, read, write. So with the East India Company functioning in India as traders, several words from Indian languages were added to English. If you care to see Oxford English Dictionary, there are so many words, and this process began at the very outset when the East India Company started functioning in India as traders. For example, Pandit. Pandit today is an accepted English word which has come from Indian regional languages. So several words, several such words. Think of, it will be very interesting to take up a study, making a list of words from Indian languages added to English and vice versa. Prin. આજે આપણી સાથે એટલું ભણાઈ ગયું છે we don't speak અગ્નિરથ. Agnirat. So one, Indianization of English language was necessary, and two, Anglicization of Indians. Indians should be willing to accept the Western ideology, the Western thoughts, the Western education, the Western ways, and this would be made possible for the British not as traders, but when the British became the colonial power in India. And these are the steps. 1757. I will not go into the details of the history, but the landmark years I have written. 1757 with the Battle of Plassey. Now the shift begins with for the Britishers from trader to the journey to become colonizers. 1757, the Battle of Plassey between the Nawab of Calcutta and the British. Revenue administration comes in the hands of the British. 1772, these are the landmark years. 1798, administration of criminal justice in Bengal. So the admin power going to British is the remarkable shift towards colonization. And the first English newspaper in India is the British Bengal Gazette. That begins. And finally, you are studying Macaulay's Minutes, which year 1835. This is the beginning of English education in India, which was made possible with the foundation of Hindu College. Hindu College was founded, and in 1855 it was renamed as Presidency College. 1817 में जो Hindu College established. Even till date, Presidency College is there in Calcutta, which is today now it exists as an autonomous university, Presidency University. So English education began in India. They educated elite people of the city, mainly Calcutta, who were fascinated, who were inspired, who were motivated to take English education, were led towards reading English literature and consequently, gradually, writing. But Indian poetry, Indian poets, Indian writers in English have faced several debates. So So this is how Indian writing in English originated with the beginning of English education. But were the writers accepted as Indian writers? They were not. So the first debate, the first challenge for Indian poetry in English was the identity crisis. And the reason was, when Indians began to write poetry in English, the Englishmen settled in India, because with East India Company, several Englishmen had also settled in India. They saw the Indian setup and they had already started writing poetry on Indian subjects. So how could Indian poets in English claim their own identity? They were considered as part of English literature, a segment called Anglo-Indian literature. At the most, this was the only identity that the poets could have, and they became part of English literature. So they, even before say 10 years or so, in Jaipur Literature Festival, this discrimination with Indian poets in English and other Indian poets was pointed out by Salman Rushdie. So it took fairly long time for the writers to claim an identity. What would the writers want? We are Indians. We want the identity as Indian poets in English, and that was made possible only after independence. After independence also, Indian literature in English passed through several titles. कि उसको क्या करेंगे? It was called Indo-Andean literature. It was called Anglo-Indian literature. But the word Anglo always included the English segment. So finally, with historians, scholars like Srinivas Iyengar, N.K. Naik, the title Indian writing in English, Indian English writing. So now to focus on poetry, Indian poetry in English, Indian English poetry. This identity was given to Indian writing in English. And the second is major challenges Indianization. In English literature, we have clear-cut periods: Elizabethan age, Jacobean age, Restoration age, age of hope, and so on. Do we have that periodization in English? And all of you would say, yes, हम तो पढ़े हैं up to 1857. 1857 से 1920, 1920 to 1947, but that is not the only periodization which exists. There are several debates, several challenges. So let us take up a writer, R.K. Narayan. R.K. Narayan was born in pre-independence era and he died in 2006. कहाँ पे place करोगे? Where do you place R.K. Narayan? There are several writers like this. Raja Rao, born in pre-independence era, started writing in pre-independence era and died in 21st century. Girish Karna, कितने writers हैं? So how do you periodize? There are no unanimously agreed periods in Indian poetry in English. Several scholars and historians have tried. These are some periodizations. One is the periodization we have studied, N.K. Naik's periodization, जो हम already पढ़ चुके हैं. B.K. Goka, if you study 315 में, if you are studying the language paper, तो उसमें it is part of Goka is a linguist, historian. He has suggested a periodization of a span of 25 years till date. That doesn't work. Standard periodization is pre-independence and post-independence. That also does not work. For Indian poetry in English, the periodization that logically works is this. Okay. This is the periodization given by Bhakaran Paranjpe. in his book Indian Poetry in English. Colonialism 1850 to 1900. हमने कोई up to 1857 नहीं बोला. Why? Because we strongly presuppose that Indian poetry in English started to be written in 1850s, not before that. So 1850 to 1900 colonialism, 1900 to 1950 the entire span of India's freedom movement, which started with 1857, then got subsided for some time. Again, it took momentum 1900, and that is by nationalism. Two periods of pre-independence times, modernism and postmodernism. 1950 to 1980. अब ये modernism and postmodernism are the terms from English history. Am I right? You are studying it this year. What are the dates of modern age in England? 1900 to 1960. Tentative. 1900 to 1960. So 1900 to 1950 is our nationalism. That is why I keep telling you, England is behind France by 50 years and India is behind England by 50 years. Not going into that debate, let us begin with the colonialism, the first era which claims the origin, the beginning of Indian poetry in English. Colonialism. You can take down these points and write sentences on them. There are about 25 to 28 slides, so your essay will be complete. I have taken care that the essay gets complete. So now, the second slide which showed us the steps for Anglicization of Indians, they were actually the steps for the traders, East India Company to become colonizers. So here, British rule in India was established when 1857 revolt failed. They established themselves as colonizers, and the British, we all know, implemented oppressive socio-political economic system, which, when do you call the system is oppressive? which चाहते कि भाई जस्टिस के लिए जा रहे हो तो कोर्ट में कौन है? ब्रिटिश जज बैठे हैं. ब्रिटिशर के अगेंस्ट में केस किया है तो हु इज गोइंग टू टेक द केस? अ ब्रिटिश एडवोकेट. हु इज गोइंग टू आंसर योर चार्ज? British judge. So emphasizing the discrimination, the difference between the ruling class and the class being ruled. अगर justice मिलना ही नहीं. What would be the stand of the poets? For us, more than history, why we are discussing history in every period? Because worth noting that history of Indian writing in English goes hand in hand with the rule of the British in India and then because we are writing in the foreign language, colonizers language. अब सोचो कि what would be the stand of the poets? The poets displayed various degrees of compromise and conflict. Right? Compromise क्यों है? एक तरफ रिवॉल्ट करते हो, एक तरफ बोलते हो कि वी आर इंडियंस. इन whose language are you writing literature? In the colonizers' language. तो आपकी language of expression is the language of the colonizers. So that is a compromise. This is the compromise. But मेरे अंदर का इंडियन कहाँ जाएगा? Patriot कैसे बाहर आएगा? So they tried to show their resistance by writing on Indian subjects. They were very much influenced by English romantics because आगे देखे तो क्या था? English literature. They were influenced by English romantics largely, and even Victorian writers till they came. But they wrote on Indian subjects. The temperament may be whatever, the style may be whatever, but this is the conflict, this is the resistance that they show. So these are the various degrees of conflict and compromise. Conflict because compromise because they are writing in colonizers' language. Conflict, that is resistance, because they are writing आपकी लैंग्वेज में लिखेंगे पर आपको दिखाएंगे कि what we are. They wrote on Indian heritage. They wrote on Indian essence, Indian ethnicity. And these are the voices, colonial poets. The first Indian poet in English, Henry Berosio, about by movement. Say it. Henry Berosio, the first Indian poet in English with Indo-Portuguese descent. His mother was the Anglo-Indian, that is Portuguese. Portuguese mother, Indian father, who was a poet, teacher, journalist, and intellectual. To be an intellectual in the period of colonialism, what did it mean? It meant he was open-minded. He was open to Western ideas and conscious of Indian heritage. An intellectual meant that. Tagore की एक novel है, I always recommend and I would strongly recommend as students of Indian literature. Read in Gujarati, read in Hindi, read in English. It's an amazing novel which says what India is. Even if I write in English, I am Indian by heart. It's an excellent novel. So to be an intellectual, it reminded me from this term, intellectual. He wrote poetry on Indian subjects. The Fakir of Changira, the title itself shows Fakir. It's a word from Indian language introduced in English. The Harp of India, My Country, In Thy Day of Glory Past. I said, these are two short poems. I don't think I have time to read the poems, but the examples that I have been giving, you can just open the Google, they will be there on Google, I'm sure. They are there in the prescribed text, but you can read from Google also. Even if you read, browse through, it will be fun. These are the captive lady. It's a long narrative. He wrote sonnets in described as texts because they are not up to the mark. But Michael Madhusudan Dutt is a pioneer, one of the pioneers of Bengali literature. As in Mathrubhashana Divase, when he turned to his mother tongue, he did wonders. He is a great Bengali romanticist. This text you have studied in acquaintance, the Dutt family alone. There were two elite families in Calcutta which contributed to development of Indian poetry in English, and the first was the Dutt family, Govind Chandra Dutt, and his two brothers and a cousin. They all together brought an anthology, one of its own kind. It was a family anthology, so-called Dutt Family Album, which has 187 poems. And Govind Chandra Dutt had two daughters, Toru Dutt, Anu Dutt. Toru Dutt is the first significant Indian poetess, the woman poet in English. You can compare Toru Dutt with John Keats. She was very much influenced by romantics. All the colonial and national poets are influenced by English romantics, nationalists by Victorians also, but largely they are Indian poets in English. Any questions? I'll be answering questions your doubts later. So Toru Dutt, you have studied Toru Dutt also. Sita, you have studied. And this is the tribute that N.K. Naik pays. It was with Toru Dutt that Indian English poetry graduated from imitation to authenticity. Being a colonial poet, the family shifted to UK, but after 9 years they adapted to Christianity also. But after 9 years they returned to India. And here is Toru Dutt, who started his career by translating poems from French, well versed in French, in English, but in English she retold, she narrated the stories from Ramayana and Mahabharata. It matches with what we discussed in colonialism, ancient battles and legends of Hindustan. Here is another example of what happens if you give up your roots, if you insist on Western ideology only. He went, his education, higher education took place abroad. He lived there very happily and always wanted to be there. But after his father died, he was forced to come to India. And he wrote, Lawrence Binyon was a major English poet who was very close to Manmohan Ghosh. He wrote to him, there is nothing I dread so much as going back to India. Because I feel quite at home with my surroundings here in India. There, I should be utterly out of sympathy with everything. I know neither the people nor the language. All is strange and alien. If this is your attitude, what happens? And the best example is the life of Mahabharata. Throughout his life, he cherished the dream of going back to India, that he finally gotten, but so lived a very sad, lonely, isolated life. अब ये जो मैंने नहीं कहा, he was the elder brother of Mahabharata. Both brothers, there were 4 siblings. Shri Aurobindo, heard this name, कैसे सुना? A freedom fighter. Pondicherry में. Has anyone been to Pondicherry? Pondicherry में जो आश्रम है, Aurobindo आश्रम. Even today, Aurobindo sect is there. Very few followers, but it is there. तो एक ही घर में पले बड़े victims of eccentricity of the father. Father was a civil surgeon, but very eccentric, a Brahmo Samaji, very eccentric. Initially, India में उन्होंने ये दोनों भाइयों को गर्ल्स कॉन्वेंट में पढ़ने के लिए छोड़ दिया. Such eccentric father. The mother went insane and died, but apart from it, both went abroad. Aurobindo returned. We will discuss Aurobindo in the next phase. कि दोनों भाई, but one is considered as perhaps the greatest Indian poet in English till date, unsurpassed. Indian poetry in English has only one epic, and that is written by Aurobindo. And look at this: if you give up your roots, you are noble. If you stick to your roots, you are one like Aurobindo. These are the colonial poets. Now the second phase of still British as the colonizers, still pre-independence times, but why is the age changing? And this is the golden age. Now, if you compare it with English history, what happens? English history में 1900 to 1960 is the negative period. Freud ने कहा तुम इतने बुरे हो. Your subconscious is, it follows no rules. Economic crisis world ने देखी, World War देखा. So Europe was passing through the most negative phase, but India was passing through the most optimistic period. Optimism, when there is optimism in you, when you have a hope, when you have a goal, a purpose. What was the purpose? The only purpose was freedom चाहिए. राम राज्य आएगा. When once you get freedom. So the entire country was sharing one dream, irrespective of caste, creed, religion. Entire country was one. So India was passing through the most optimistic period of its history, and that affected the poets also. The poet, so India's freedom struggle also gathered momentum. In spite of the English being the colonizers, Indians with their morality, with their consciousness of ethnicity, with their intellect, with their ideology, they were establishing supremacy over the British. पहले जो सोच भी नहीं सकते थे, now they were establishing their ideological supremacy over the British. So the confidence that was built up, that is why the period is called not colonialism but nationalism, national pride, period of national pride. When Gandhi, 1920 से Gandhi came on the forefront, and Gandhi was the greatest influence in all walks of life. The poets का क्या? Poets were influenced by this nationalistic spirit, and many of them, as you rightly said, Aurobindo was a freedom fighter. Who else? Sarojini Naidu was a freedom fighter, and these are the nationalistic poets. The first one, Rabindranath Tagore. We will not discuss Tagore in detail. You have already studied in semester 4, I suppose. That is why I have put just the questions. A versatile artist, we know that. Letters से लेके, prose से लेके, short story, novel, drama, and poetry. But he too, which is the only poem he wrote in English. The rest are written in Bengali and then translated by Tagore himself in English, including the one for which he won the Nobel Prize. But Kachai. And Tagore is a combination of उसमें mysticism. Mysticism means a unique experience. What I experience, you may not know. You may not understand. For example, he says in Gitanjali, if I hear your footsteps outside my window. आपने कुछ नहीं सुना, मैंने सुना. Because this is my own experience. I hear your footsteps outside the window. It's a prayer to God. एक तरफ this high mysticism is there, but the mysticism is combined with ordinariness. Gitanjali में ही, in the same Gitanjali, एक कविता में he says कि where is God? वो जो कबीर की रचना है, मुझको कहाँ ढूंढे रे बंदे, मैं तो तेरे पास, ना मैं जप में, ना मैं तप में, ना एकांत निवास में. The same thing he repeats, Tagore, in one of the poems in Gitanjali. He, where is God? Not give up your holy mantle, give up your incense. ये धूप दीप छोड़ दो, मंदिर में साधना करना छोड़ दो, because ईश्वर, Lord is with the order. He is with the path maker. He is with the one who is digging the soil. तो एक तरफ mysticism है, एक तरफ ordinariness है. It's a beautiful combination. He is a romantic, he is a philosopher, he is a patriot. Whatever adjective we put, we can justify it. The heaven of freedom. एक तरफ he welcomes King George V, and एक तरफ he says, आंचल के तुझे मैं लेके चलूं उस एक ऐसे गगन के तले, जहाँ गम भी न हो, आंसू भी न हो, बस प्यार ही प्यार करे. The song is absolutely inspired by Tagore's heaven of freedom. To that heaven of freedom, where the mind is without fear and head is taken. ऐसी दुनिया में मुझे भेजा. Shri Aurobindo. The second poet, one of the greatest, even if we say the greatest Indian poet in English. His career, यही पढ़ के, his career is a glorious chronicle of progress. He started as a patriot, but as a patriot he was from where did Aurobindo started his career? किसी को पता? He was a professor of English in MS University, where he taught Kaniyalal Munshi and some other people. जहाँ पे बॉम्ब बनाना भी सीख रहे हैं और सिखाते हैं. So चाणक्य ने कहा था ना, शिक्षक कभी साधारण नहीं होता. Aurobindo is a great example. He started as a patriot, to poet, yogi, and seer. Then the British government was to arrest him. He went underground, and then finally turned to ascetic, became an ascetic and spiritual yogi and visionary. So a scholar and spiritual visionary. But one thing for Aurobindo, he combined the Indian spirituality with Western philosophy. This was amazing on his part. He was an intellectual. I told you who an intellectual meant in the pre-independence era. Henry Derozio was an intellectual. Raja Ram Mohan Roy was an intellectual. Aurobindo was an intellectual who combined the Indian spirituality with Western ideology, philosophy, and created his own sect. He founded his ashram. So a philosopher, a mystic, a lyricist, and a narrative poet, which natak bhi likhe the, which were not staged. Wrote lyrics, sonnets, narrative poems, dramatic poems, and then wrote on abstract subjects like life, death, God, eternity. Kapadia की बहुत influence Aurobindo के अंदर. I didn't have little time to read, but life, death, life, the words have led to ages. for death is life distanced. To go ahead, there's still a long journey. So Aurobindo's pain rests on his highly philosophical, spiritual epic called Savitri. Savitri, ऐसे तो सत्यवान सावित्री की कहानी, but it's so very philosophically and spiritually rich, and an epic of humanity and divinity, of death and the life. Sarojini, Aurobindo say opposite level. Her poems are grounded in anti-intellectual aesthetics. Anti-intellectual is she is not a mystic. She is not a highly philosophical writer. She is with the mass. Aesthetics of ephemeral का मतलब है temporary. She understands the temporariness of things, but she celebrates life. She always celebrates life. These are the 4 volumes of her poetry. She's called the Nightingale of India. Now बोलते हैं singing bird. No, that could be a secondary thing. Nightingale was actively involved in nursing the soldiers, the wounded soldiers who came from the World War. Nightingale was the name of a nurse. उस पर से Nightingale of India. These are the 4 volumes. Very down to earth. Like she has a poem called The Old Woman. अब ये old woman जो है, she is a beggar woman who is sitting by the roadside and begging. She has so many as such. अगर सोचने जाए तो there is no end of suffering. She is blind, she is poor, she is lonely, but she celebrates the pageant of life. यही जिंदगी है. दूसरों के लिए तो दुआ करो. ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह. She says. Her poetry celebrates.
જે લોકોને જવાનું હોય જઈ શકે છે. વચ્ચે વચ્ચે એક જણ ના રહે.
एक जन नहीं है.
ડિસ્ટર્બ થાય મારી. જેને જવાનું હોય નીકળી જાઓ. એટલે પછી અમે કન્ટિન્યુ કરીએ આગળ. બરાબર, ફટાફટ જલ્દીથી નીકળી જાઓ. પાય અહીંયા ના આવે કોઈના પગમાં ધ્યાન રાખવું. જે લોકો પાછળ કરીને આગળ આવવું હોય તો બી આવી શકે. એવું જઈને આવવું હોય તો જઈ આવો. જઈને આવવું હોય તો જઈ આવો. હવે એક એવું કોઈ ઉભા ના થાય.
This is what Aurobindo told about Sarojini. These voices are generally neglected. Anand Acharya, Humayun Kabir, Puran Singh, Harindranath Chattopadhyay, very disappointing poet, and J. Krishna Jupiter. इसी ऑर्डर में write in the essay. The way essay should be written, I have followed the same pattern. Headings खाना लगाने की. Naturally, exam को pass करना नहीं सकते. Like go ahead. So now, modernism. Whenever you say modernism, it's always very challenging. It was beginning of a new era. you dreamed for independence in the pre-independence era, now it is achieved. Read this by B.S. Naipaul, Freedom at Midnight. Now the dream is achieved. अब क्या? मंजिल तक जाना था. When you feel कि मंजिल आ गई, then you are lost. Different situations, expectations, dreams, problems, challenges. Why there was disappointment? India became a free country, but the moment freedom arrived, so India was grouped with the third world countries, undeveloped, underdeveloped, partition, war with Pakistan, Indo-China war. ये सब everything had to be faced. Decentralization of states. कितने सारे problems थे. Unemployment, poverty, little education. Where was the dream of Rama Rajya gone? So, whenever you feel the present world is burning, can the literary writer, to relate to Iyer Sahib's concept of sensitivity, can a literary writer escape from present situation? Victorian age में क्या हुआ? Could Dickens escape the problem of child labor? No. Industrial revolution? No. See, this disappointment, these challenges, these shortcomings, problems, they affected the poets. The situation was similar to England's disappointment, the disappointment of Europe. The causes were different, but situation was similar. So the ready-made aesthetics of modernism of Eliot and Comte was adapted by both. What was poetry? Next heading should be characteristics of modern Indian poetry. It was totally different from the kind of poetry that was written in the pre-independence era. Like simple example, pre-independence era में major influence क्या थी? Romantics. The Romantics. Now the romantic influence is by and large faded. Rejection of the past. बहुत बोल लिए past के बारे में. In the past, India was like this, like this, like this. Look at the present. You cannot blind your eyes to the present problems. So poets rejected past, tradition, romantic past, sometimes even customs and rituals. Yet a time to change it would. Nissim Ezekiel's first volume of poetry is titled as A Time to Change. Ezekiel, Ramanujan, Morris, these are the pioneers of modern Indian poetry in English. So my examples will be from Ezekiel, Ramanujan, Bandadas, Adil Jusawala, and modern poets. You are familiar with Ezekiel. A poem by A.K. Ramanujan. Small scale reflections on a great house. अब ये great house क्या है? A joint family. It's a comment on, ironic comment on Indian joint family system. जहाँ पे बोले जो आता है यही रह जाता है. The son-in-law also stays back to teach maths to small nieces. अपनी सालियों को मैथमेटिक्स पढ़ाने के लिए घर का जमाई भी घर छोड़ के नहीं जाता. It's an ironic comment on joint family system. So rejection of past, rejection of romanticism. Stop being romantic about India's past identity. Think of the present and you be realistic. So by and large, poetry is unsentimental and opposed to idealism and romanticism. the titles of the poems by Ezekiel, The Truth About the Floods. बिहार के फ्लड्स की बात कर रहे हैं. Ezekiel is talking about the floods of Bihar. A team went. What happens? Camera, shoot, distribution of food packets, documents. This is what happens. The truth about the floods. The railway flood. Even subject like love is dealt with an unsentimental way by modern poets. There is a poem by, there are two poems in two parts. Love poem for a wife by A.K. Ramanujan. What does the title say? Kishore Kakana jokes love, can there be a love poem for a wife? First of all, the title itself is ironic. चलो फिर भी Ramanujan is a dedicated husband. Love poem for a wife begins. The first line goes like this. Really, what keeps us apart at the end of years is unshared charity. The love poem, it's an honest, it is a love poem because it's an honest confession. Really, what keeps us apart? We have been apart. At the end of years, after staying together for years, what keeps us apart is unshared charity. It's an honest confession. That's why I love it. Urban poetry. Poetry of the city life and its problems. There is a group of poets known as, based in Bombay, known as Bombay poets. Adin Jusawala, Ian Darubala, Unis P. Susa, Nissim Ezekiel, they are all Bombay poets. Ezekiel was a professor and the principal in Mitibai College, then worked in Bombay University, retired, and spent last days in Kapadia. Sea breeze Bombay. These are the poems. On Velas's Road, Island. These are all Bombay poems. And the poets consider problems of city life at two levels: external problems and internal problems. And these become the themes of modern Indian poetry in English. What are the external problems of city life? Unemployment, poverty, slums, जहाँ पे inhygienic existence है, etc. This is a poem by Ezekiel, poem of the separation. Again a modernist title. He describes Bombay as the squalid groovy city of my birth and rebirth. ये rebirth क्या है? Rebirth इसलिए it is squalid, it is dirty. जहाँ पे मैं where I am born, but I would like to be born here. It is my city. पिछड़ा हुआ है फिर भी मेरा है. My backward place is where I am, he says. He describes, railway clerk also describes problems of middle class. Now, internal problems here. We have studied Day-1. Internal problems. What are the themes of Day-1? Problem of identity, incompleteness, difference between aspiration and reality. These are the problems. Problem of belonging, alienation, isolation, alienation. All these are major themes of modern poetry. एक कविता है रामानुजन की, self-portrait. He says, एक rhyme है, बच्चों की rhyme है. Everyone says I look like my father. Everyone says I behave like my mother. Everyone says I my father. यहाँ तो हमारे कई मोटिवेशनल स्पीकर्स जैसे कि आपने क्या બે વ્યક્તિઓ નહીં બે કુટુંબો કરે છે. Family identity. Where is my identity? That is self-portrait. तो एक और सुंदर कविता है, an introduction. I meet people and I ask everyone. Kamla Das says, who are you? So everyone would say, it is I. It is I. It's me is wrong English. It is I. But your I is not different from my I. It's all. Everyone's I, an assertion of individuality, is the same. So the search for the loss of identity and so on. This is for Ezekiel. Ezekiel by birth was a Jewish guy. He was a Jew. Jew का एक ही देश है. Which one? For what it is fighting today? Why is that country so fanatic? इतना छोटा देश है, इतना such a small country, but defeating the, challenging the entire world. Israel. So, in India, he considers himself as a foreigner. कि भाई मैं तो ये कहाँ मेरा देश है. He sees himself always as different from his background. ये जो alienation, identity. The first line of the poem, Background Casualty, see, very interesting. A poet, rascal, clown was born. A poet, rascal, clown was born. इसके बाद कोई बच्चा होता है तो do we identify the child as this? He is different from his background. He always puts himself, describes himself as different from his background. But ultimately, in India, he sees himself as a foreigner. When he goes abroad, there people see him as an Indian. तो मैं हूँ क्या भाई? So ultimately, with a tinge of sadness, but he accepts his Indian and says, my backward, मुझे कुछ भी है, कोई भी विरोध है, कुछ भी है, but my backward place is good. With these themes, alienation, urban life, loss of love, loss of integrity, irony is the best themes. Modern poets make use of irony to bring out themes. These themes suit the device of irony. I gave you this example. एक और example. Egoist traits. Look at the title. Can an egoist trait, first of all? An egoist cannot trait. Because an egoist is a self-satisfied person. मैं जो हूँ वो सही हूँ. फिर भी this egoist plays. And I just give one line. Oh Lord, let me be the camel of the higher income group. Higher income group वाले गधे होते हैं, camels होते हैं. They are selfish, they are bad, they are ill-bred, whatever you say. But oh Lord, let me be camel ही सही चलेगा. Let me be the camel of the higher income. Here it is. Let me be, oh Lord, the camel of the higher income. And these are the golden quotes. बहुत सारे, the list is endless. पाँच सात बहुत. well in India could not continue for more than 30 years. There are reasons. How can you be away from your tradition? First of all, to reject past was difficult. To reject Indian identity was difficult. So, there is a transition. Now, European postmodernism is very different. If you have it in 313, postmodernism. It is very different from Indian postmodernism. You cannot compare it. The European postmodernism is a critical theory. The Indian postmodernism is a situational shift, transition, not modernism. What is Indian postmodernism? It is return to Indianism. With what is similar is simply the techniques, the devices which are used. Parody pata hai? Pastiche is just like parody, but parody में there is humor, मजाक है. All singers went to a party, dinner party, and the host insisted कि आपको जो भी चाहिए वो गाने में मांगो. This is a parody. But copying without any emotion is pastiche. In parody, pastiche, and then he continues. These are the we'll go to postmodernism. So the poets regret loss of tradition. Traditional values छोड़ नहीं सकते. These are the poems. Professor by K.N. Darwala. My grandmother's house. It is nostalgic poem where she remembers how she spent her. It is glorifying past. Felling of a banyan tree. It again glorifies past. Ezekiel wrote 7 volumes of poetry. This is the last volume of poetry, Hymns in Darkness. There is a search for spirituality, जो modernism में है. This is postmodernism. Many, I told you, R.K. Narayan was born in the pre-independence era, 16, and died in 2006. So many modernist poets, they are the living poets, but they easily shifted to postmodernism, and these are the ones who shifted easily to postmodernism. And leading postmodern poets are Manohar Sethi, Vikram Sheth, Agashahi Gali, Imtiaz Thakur. These are all living poets. Postmodern devices, which I talked about. Collage, we understand what collage is. The cuttings on the same theme. The poetry became, rather than commenting on it, it just presented the pictures, minute pictures. Best example is Agashahi Gali की एक कविता है, Postcard from Kashmir. It's a collage. One of the things they wrote on the art of writing poetry. Which one? Yeah, parody, pastiche, collage, and intertextuality. What is intertextuality? Intertextuality is a critical concept. It's a research concept, a critical concept. Intertextuality is influence, a conscious influence of one text on another. Influence or going and coming back to other disciplines, other texts, and retaining your own identity. That is intertextuality. But students, but the line between intertextuality and plagiarism is very thin. So this is very risky or interesting. Collage. Youth festival માં collage ની competition હોય છે. Has anyone participated in collage? Collage. A subject is given and you cut pieces from the newspapers, journals, you cut pieces and you make the entire picture. So the image comes as a whole, but the image is made up of small pieces. Image is made up of small pieces. The poetry develops through fragmentation. Fragments. Poetry develops through fragmentation. That is collage. Parody, I gave you the example. The same, the text is imitated with a view to producing humor. Humor, irony, satirizing, मजाक, copy. किशोर कुमार अपना एक गाना गा रहे हैं, but the words are different. मुझे दाल चाहिए, मुझे रसगुल्ला चाहिए कहने के लिए आज चल के तुझे की क्यों? चल के तुझे मेरी किचन मुझे दाल दे दो बैठ रहा हूँ. This is parody. This is parody. To produce humor. Pastiche is also a copy, but there is no emotion added, like humor, like tragedy, like pathos. ऐसा कुछ नहीं. It's a feelingless copy. That is pastiche. Now, in the 21st century, the scope of Indian poetry in English has widened. Creative translations, earlier it never happened, but now creative translations from regional languages are also included in the canon. For example, Javed Akhtar ki kavita. Which language Javed Akhtar writes in? Hindi, I don't know. Javed Akhtar, नाम सुना है कि नहीं? Javed Akhtar की हिंदी में लिखी हुई कविता, the translation is quiver. It is part of the canon of Indian poetry in English. Kabir की translated रचनाएं now they are prescribed in the syllabus. So the scope has widened. Regional languages में से translations they are included in the canon. These are some new poets, the present day poets. Okay, a whole segment of diaspora poetry. Diaspora poetry is, who are diaspora? People of Indian origin settled abroad. अभी we celebrate प्रवासी भारतीय दिवस अभी ही करें. तो people of Indian origin settled abroad, writing poetry, literature. They write about what? Displacement, ये कहाँ आ गए हम? Belonging. अभी right now I explain कि भाई we are people of Indian origin. Today what America is facing because of Trump's changing policies. People of Indian origin, they face the problem of belonging. Are they Indians? Are they Americans? Are they Indian Americans? Are they American Indians? Cultural hybridity, gender, identity politics, ये सब things. And the major writers are Chitra Banerjee. All of them, Chitra Banerjee, Diga Karuni is a very leading novelist. Palace of Illusion, पढ़ो, द्रौपदी की कहानी. They write on Indian myths. Zulfa Lahiri is a novelist and a poet. So these are the
open for question answers, interaction.
Questions, queries, comments.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
what is the squalene?
What does
A squalene mean?
squalene? Squalene is dirty emotions. Dirty. Little squalene.
You may ask questions on today's topic, Indian poetry in English. आज जो कुछ भी आप गुजराती में, हिंदी, इंग्लिश किसी भी लैंग्वेज में क्वेश्चन पूछ सकते हो विदाउट हेजिटेशन.
Yes, yes, asking Gujarati. That is why very consciously I have been bilingual.
Yes.
To make you feel comfortable. To make you feel comfortable, I have deliberately been bilingual. Any questions? Yeah.
The term intertextuality को समझना.
She is a Canto student, so
Okay. See, intertextuality, in fact, that term, this concept of intertextuality is an age-old concept. But officially, the term was coined in 1973. The term was coined as part of critical theory. It was meant to be a critical theory. It is applied to critical theory and to research also. Intertextuality means if I am influenced by, for example, say, let me explain. Vishal Bharadwaj, Makbul. It is an adaptation of Mangala. But Soumya Joshi's 102 not out. Have you seen it? Yes. Emma, there is, if you have been to Natak, there is a reference to the post office. Any latch? The father says that there will be a KB post office. If you are watching as audience, you will not come to know. But Nitesh bhai, Rashmi bhai ke હું જોઈએ, તો we will at once relate to ટાગોરનું નાટક છે post office. જેમાં અને સૌમ્ય also being a student of English literature. So we can at once relate it. This is intertextuality. He refers to the post office, but that does not dilute the spirit of his own text. 102. Now there is a very dangerous concept called plagiarism. Plagiarism is also getting influenced, but it's a copy. It's a copy of the text, which is objectionable because it's a legal offense. A text, my creation, is my intellectual property. Is my intellectual property. So IPR એના પર implement કરી શકાય. Intellectual property right. My creation is my intellectual property. You cannot copy it. You cannot take it. So if there is a copy, on this count, if a copy is proved, the writer can be punished. The one who has copied can be punished. And it has happened before a few years. A writer in Switzerland or Norway, she was banned for copying. She argued out that I love his poetry and so I am influenced. But no, she was not influenced. She was simply copying. So intertextuality should not go to plagiarism.
Any other question? So, you said clear. Yes.
please, anything you want. Regarding poetry, regarding
Any
poetry.
observations?
Okay, ma'am. Swati ma'am મને પૂછો છે. મને સ્ટુડન્ટ્સને પણ એક પૂછવું છે કે she
present times આ કોમ્પ્રોમાઇઝ અને કોન્ફ્લિક્ટની સિચ્યુએશનમાંથી આપણે ઘણી બધી અંશે બહાર આવ્યા છે. The reason is, one, English is accepted as one of the scheduled languages in India. Two, the English speaking community, the English speaking people have increased like everything. The number has increased. 3 June. Okay? In English, we may take education in English, but now with the Matrubhasha Abhiyan and now with the awakening to regional cultures and languages, I think today the scenario has now started changing. Even when we were studying Kashmir, we were facing this. But now the students can proudly say that we are Indians and studying English. We have our own identity. હવે એ આઈડેન્ટિટી ક્રાઇસિસમાંથી ઘણા બધા વિષય આપણે જોવા છીએ. એએમએના લેક્ચર્સ જે થાય છે, યુ ગો ટુ those lectures, Nivedita was also there, and all the Nivedita Agrawal was also there, all leading poets, writers who have Ashwin Sanghi's, they have established their identity. Amish Tripathi is known, can never be called a canon, a part of the canon of English literature. He is a part of Indian literature.
I'd like to request a few students to give feedback so that हम लोग को भी इंस्पायर होगा नहीं कि यहाँ पर लेक्चर
Yeah, बराबर से करें. कल लेक्चर करके शिकायत में भी कर शकाय.
You can give your feedback in Gujarati, English, Hindi, any language.
कैसा लगा आपको लेक्चर?
Yes. हाँ, please.
तो मैं मेरा तो लाइफ में करके पोएट्री टाइप
What is fragmentation? Now, what is fragmentation? Fragmentation. હું એક normal speech માં મારા એક પ્લસ સ્ટાફ મેમ્બર છે. When he comes to me, એ આપણે પરીક્ષા સાચું એટલે કરતા છે. આમ તો બધા પેપર આપી દે છે, પણ જે સમયસર નથી આપતા. હા, એ તો તમે જોઈ જ છો. There are 2 fragments. કયા 2 fragments? નંબર 1 કે પરીક્ષા આખું એને જો ડિટેલિંગ કરવા જાવ તો કે બેન પરીક્ષા આવી ગઈ છે અને હવે તારીખ નજીક આવી ગઈ છે. નંબર 2 કે બધા સ્ટાફ મેમ્બર્સ આપી દે છે ક્વેશ્ચન પેપર્સ, પણ કેટલાક નથી આપતા જેના નામ તમે જાણો છો, તો સમયસર ક્વેશ્ચન પેપર જવાનું કરો. પણ અભી બી છે આમ તો બધા આપી દે છે, પણ હા રૂટું. This is a fragment. And a fragment pieces. When it comes to literature, writing, fragmentation is you are not taking life as a whole. You are considering it in pieces, fragments. જીવનનો આખો તબક્કો જે નવલકથા કરે છે, but now એક નવલકથા છે આપણી ગુજરાતીમાં પણ એક સોક્રેટિસ વિસર ખાંડેકર યયા અને there is a novel by a postmodern writer William Faulkner, As I Lay Dying. એમાં કેવું છે કે આખી નવલકથાની વાર્તા આપણે કનૈયાલાલ મુનશીને વાંચીએ. Have you read મુનશીજી? મુનશીજીની નવલકથા વાંચો और you read any say Goldsmith, Vicar of Wakefield. It begins અને logically progress કરતા આગળ જાય. This novel has chapters માં every chapter has a different speaker. In event કશું સળંગ છે જ નહીં. It's all broken pieces. 25 વર્ષ પહેલાની વાત એક ચેપ્ટર કરે છે, અત્યારની વાત એના પછીનું ચેપ્ટર કરે છે, ત્રીજું ચેપ્ટર 10 વર્ષ પહેલાની વાત કરે છે. This is fragmentation. If you have seen, there was a movie उस रात की सुबह other side. There is no continuity. Same thing happens in poetry. Different distorted pictures, not a continuous one. Right? Does that answer?
Now to me, yes. Coming for the feedback. Gujarati, Hindi, English दोनों हम एक मिनट 30
Any
सेकंड
language.
20 सेकंड.
It's fine.
I'm good, but from here. सर आपको बात
आगे आ जाओ.
यहाँ
This is Indian English poetry, and I'm actually saying this to ma'am from today onwards. I'm going to read Indian English poetry.
Please say your name and college name.
Okay, so my name is Swati and I'm from 7th year Adventist College. Okay,
Thank you. Anyone else? Please शांति रखो 5 मिनट का.
Actually, I was a student. The words, I'm giving you many words, but the way I explained, giving examples, she explained each and every term. It was amazing. I really loved it. Thank you.
Say your name and college name.
My name is Krishna Rina. I'm from Slusha Arts College.
Thank you. So now let's welcome Rashmi ma'am for word of thanks and the observation also.
They do find poetry not very engaging, not very interesting. और जब वो syllabus का part बन जाता है तो और
हाँ, exactly.
one last हम sing Hindi songs, so poetry है, but when it comes as a matter for writing answers in exams, it becomes difficult. And that's why we request Swati ma'am to come in and make things accessible. It appears so very hard, I think, something beyond my interest, my the area of interest, that kind of thing. So poetry ठीक है, syllabus का topic है तो, right? But जब स्वाति मैम बोलती है, so it becomes something. Oh yes, I already like it. ये तो मुझे है ही interest, मुझे पता नहीं था कि I am interested in so much. So thank you Swati ma'am for reminding us that we do like poetry. You did that. We didn't know. हमको पता ही नहीं था कि हमको कविताएं अच्छी लगती है, ठीक है ना? और ये Indians, okay, इतना अच्छा लिखते हैं. I didn't know that. Answer figure रट लिया था सारे ना. But you pointed out in some simple, accessible terms. कि भाई be proud of your writers, of your nationalities. कि भाई हमारे Indian poets भी, you know, we have crammed Wordsworth, beginning from Shakespeare. We Winter Summer है और Wordsworth है और वो Byron, Romantics है, Tennyson है, coming to yesterday. ठीक है, but हमारे Indian poets का भी उतना ही बड़ा contribution है, and they are doing a great work. So thank you, Swati ma'am, for realizing that and renewing our interest as an Indian topic, besides being a topic of syllabus only. I'm sure your lecture will always remain a reference point for all the students who I'm sure will go on in life and come back again and again. And remember, the topic हमने